What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. And of course, once again, we've got a great panel. So I want to introduce a guest that you've seen here before on this show. It's been a long time since we had her. Happy to have her back. And if you are any part of MMA Twitter, you know her very, very well. She is Gina of the Shots Fired and the Wocast, one of my absolute favorite fades in mixed martial arts. Gina, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to be back. What up?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and I've been trying to get Michael Morgan and Ciryl. Well, Ciryl's actually, I didn't realize I didn't follow him on Twitter until like a few days ago. I thought I'd been following him, but whatever. I'm trying to get the rest of the Wocast on here as well. So definitely look out for that. And me and Mike have been trying to talk and get the schedules coordinated. So look out for that. We'll have the rest of the Wocast on here as well. And of course, you know, the senior editor of Sherdog.com. He is the jack of all trades that has mastered them all. Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
Man, I have not mastered the trade of keeping the lights on in Texas when our state is woefully unprepared for a natural disaster. So obviously I was out last week. I had no power. Shit was real cold here. But now the power's back on, and it is in the low 70s today. Beautiful day. I can only attribute the change in climate to the return of Derrick Lewis's balls to the Houston area. You know, just warming things up. And I'm just real happy to be back.
I'd say I thought you were broadcasting from Cancun today. And of course, we've got the associate
I came back in a real damn hurry, like when y'all outed me.
Putting all that water in the back of trunks and empty cars
for the night, though.
Yeah. Or putting all the cases of water in the trunk of cars and empty parking lots. Good work, Ben. All right, and of course, we've got the associate editor of Sherdog.com. He is the man with the facts, the stats, the figures, and the numbers. My man, Jay Petru. Jay, what's going on?
Well, you know, it makes sense to talk about Derrick Lewis, and as Ben brought him up, because, you know, he did a pretty spectacular thing this weekend, something that I feel like deserves that I have to skip my introduction to go right to the stat of the week, because what he did is that impressive. Derrick Lewis knocked out Curtis Blaydes, as we know, with that uppercut of uppercuts, and in doing so earned his 12th UFC knockout, which, by the way, ties the record all time with Vitor Belfort, and Belfort had a lot of fights in the old days. You know, he wasn't necessarily fighting the Curtis Blaydes, the Alexander Volkovs in his time. So this is really something. He's the all-time leader at heavyweight, more so than before, and obviously he has the most knockouts of any one weight class. So come on, Derrick Lewis. Yes, I'll take it. I don't care if I was wrong. I don't care if I was supremely wrong about what I expected. Please, yes, please, thank you. I'll take it, Derrick Lewis.
Yeah, Derrick Lewis, man, he keeps on impressing. A ridiculous performance he pulled victory out of the jaws of defeat yet again. This guy is pulling off miracles here. And that brings us to our first question for the day. Do you think his win over Curtis Blaydes tells us more about what Lewis is good at or what Curtis Blaydes is weak at?
I guess I'll jump on this grenade here first because I'm still hyped up about that knockout. You know, I think it tells us more about Derrick Lewis, because some people could posit the argument that Curtis Blaydes may be chinny, but who have knocked him out? Francis Ngannou, Derrick Lewis. It isn't a, you know, he gets touched up by Sergey Spivak. It isn't he gets clipped on the chin. Yeah, okay, fine. Mark Hunt dropped him, and then he proceeded to take Mark Hunt down 10 times. So clearly his chin isn't a terminal issue for him. And so I don't think it speaks to his weakness. Derrick Lewis, I don't think we can really look at his performances and say another spectacular comeback for Derrick Lewis. It just seems like it was all part of the plan. And that's such a weird, like, I almost compare it to like a more kind of confusing version of what Alistair Overeem has been doing lately, where he's been showing up to try and take the shots, let the other opponent tire himself out, play rope-a-dope a little bit and catch him, because Derrick Lewis was getting pieced up in the first round. Like, no two ways about it. I think he landed, 3-5 strikes period, the end in that 5-minute span. And then suddenly Curtis Blaydes, changed levels, and Lewis saw it, bang, bang. his timing is immaculate. His back is like 70%, and that's about as good as it will ever be. But there's a question that I want to ask you guys in relation to this overarching question about Blaydes and Lewis. Is it going to be time to talk about Derrick Lewis in the top 5 all-time list not far from now at heavyweight?
Whew. That's a hell of a question.
His body of work is really something if you look at what he's been doing to top 5, top 10 guys repeatedly. So I don't know. Chew on it.
Ooh, G, I'll let you take that one first.
Right. I actually have questions for you, Jay, in regards to this question you just asked me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that maybe he should win a title first before we consider this, or are we considering this without that type of,
I do. It's a really good question. But like in historical standpoint, Fedor had his title in Pride, but he only defended it twice or so. So the title really wasn't as much as part of the equation. I mean, who would you probably put in your top 5? Fedor, Stipe would probably be the 1 and 2 for a lot of people. Maybe
Cormier,
Big Nog, Velasquez, Verdum, Cormier, JDS. And the only thing he has missing, which is exactly the right point, G, is he never won a belt in an organization like it. All of the rest of them did.
I think if he wins a belt, which he just might do, maybe so.
Yeah.
I think he's right outside the top 5. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not there yet, but he's on track, most definitely.
I definitely think when you compare his legacy thus far to someone like Mirko Cro Cop, who we think of as an all-time great heavyweight, Cro Cop never won a major title. I don't think he won a title at all. So
he won a Grand Prix. That's it.
Oh yeah, he won the Grand Prix.
Really?
So I probably would put Derrick Lewis over Cro Cop at this point.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he consistently has wins over top level opposition like that. So. I mean, we really have to start having that conversation of where Derrick Lewis is on the all-time list of heavyweights. And I'm not quite ready to put him at top 5, but he probably should be in the top 10 at least at this point. I mean, statistically speaking, when you have you are a leader of knockouts in not just the heavyweight division in the UFC, but the UFC period. I think it's time to start having some conversation about his place amongst other heavyweights. Ben, anything you want to add to that?
I'm with you guys. I wouldn't put him in the top 5 yet. I think a more interesting question is, where does he rank among the top heavyweights never to win a title in like the UFC, Pride, or whatever the biggest organization of the day was? Because then it's like it's him, it's Overeem, it's Cro Cop. Like he's probably top 3. He might be the number 1 at this point. Like number 1 greatest heavyweight not to win a major title.
Possibly even maybe next to Yoel Romero, greatest fighter to never win a title.
Yeah, he'd be in that conversation for me with Romero, Benavidez,
and Kenny Florian, and a couple other names that we can add to that. So so man, it's pretty interesting now that we're having this conversation about a guy who perpetually gives us enough cannon fodder to underrate him and then just goes and exceeds expectations every single time out.
I've decided something on that. I think he invites it. I think he is crazy like a fox. He knows how we see him. He knows how other fighters see him. He knows how the media and the fans see him. He's kind of the big, slow talking Houstonian guy who's really from Louisiana. And you can tell when he says his own name because he's Derrick. You can tell he was born in Louisiana. And he's still a top 5 pound for pound follow on Instagram and Twitter. And just the kind of guy who, it's always a punchline. Well, this is the camp where my back's good. I'm in the best shape of my life. He invites us to underestimate him. Just one quick thing in the immediate post show that I do on SureDog, my co-host was talking about how Lewis had a really weird first round. He barely threw anything. I said, Lewis's first rounds are almost always weird in different ways. Like it must just drive Bob Perez nuts to watch like his greatest pupil. I'm sure he has a game plan, but it's just out the window. Lewis's first rounds are always weird. And I think that's one of the reasons why, before he was the heavyweight division's all-time leader in knockouts, before he was the UFC's all-time leader, he's been the heavyweight leader in knockouts in the third round or later for a couple of years now. For a guy whose conditioning is supposedly his weak point, he'd been knocking people out in the third, fourth, fifth round for a long time. He's playing possum. He's getting one over on us. Like he's got us all fooled. He's got us snowed.
It's what I was trying to express at the very beginning of the show, is that, yeah, I think this is part of his game, and it's really something, because, like, think of the top 15 guys he's beaten. This is for me, at least, as a stats and numbers guy, this isn't some kind of confirmation bias or just the latest recency bias of, oh my gosh, look at this and knocking out the number 2 guy. No, Curtis Blaydes, top 15. We'll just go with the top 15 just for now. Top 15. Alexei Link, top 15. Blagoy Ivanov, top 15. Volkov, Ngannou, Marcin Tybura, Travis Brown, Shamil Abdurakhimov, love him or hate him, is right now the number 8 heavyweight. Roy Nelson, Gabriel Gonzaga. I think that's 10. Top 10 wins or top 15 wins at heavyweight. So it's a weird, I was thinking about that, and I kind of wanted to throw that audible out there, because he's put together a real underrated, that's really impressive resume to me.
Definitely. So where do you want to see him next? Like, who do you think he should be fighting next? My pick would be the winner of Ciryl Gane and Jared Rozenstruik. Any other options we want to throw out there for matchmaking purposes?
He called out Overeem. I would never have come up with that, but I don't hate it. For one thing, you can argue that he's done enough at this point that he's earned a title shot anyway. Certainly, we would be saying that about Blaydes if Blaydes had won, but it's going to be such a long wait since Miocic and Ngannou are fighting, in a month or so. Then John Jones is probably going to get the winner of that. Yeah. And if Miocic wins, I mean, he does not fight often.
John Jones too.
Yeah. John Jones will get a shot at some point. We might be talking about whoever is the next at that door. It's not until the beginning of next year. So he's probably going to want to fight again. So I would be fine with him fighting someone like Overeem, where I'm not going to call it like low risk, because Overeem's an incredibly dangerous guy, but why have him knock off a Gane or a Rozenstruik? I don't see the reason to knock another solid contender out of the picture.
I think the deciding factor on this will be whether or not John Jones actually makes that move to heavyweight. If we've heard the John Jones to heavyweight talks for years now, and now it feels like it's going to happen, but he's also on Twitter talking about, well, maybe I'll fight in the UFC again if they, whatever the hell is going on now. So whatever contract disputes are going on, if they don't meet mutual terms, and Jones is out of the heavyweight picture, or he decides to sit out altogether, then I see Derrick Lewis being the next guy to fight the winner of Miocic and Ngannou, especially if Ngannou wins, because he's got a win over him, despite the fact that that fight wasn't exactly the barn burner we thought it was going to be. He still holds a win over him, and that would make sense for Ngannou to face a former opponent who defeated him in his first defense. And for Stipe, it will be a fresh matchup. So it sounds like he is prime position for a title shot, depending on what John Jones wants to do.
The only thing I'll add to this is go ahead, G.
Do you think, let's just say hypothetically, Stipe gets past Francis Ngannou, right? Do you think Derrick Lewis has a chance against Stipe? Like, is he so great, but he can't beat Stipe? Or is he, like that hidden talent that we're just always discussing? Can he just flash knock him out? Will he pull something out of his ass? Or is Stipe just going to squash him?
I thought Curtis Blaydes was going to squash him. We've seen he has been matched up with people who should have squashed him many times. So let me just go back, look on his record, and see it. Curtis Blaydes should have, when you look at the X's and O's. I think Gabriel Gonzaga. I mean, this is a guy who he got Derrick Lewis in mount, and Lewis just got up and then knocked him out. Like it just is not. It defies logic. Travis Brown also should have beaten him. So that we've seen time and time again, like he keeps beating people he's not supposed to beat. We've seen Stipe get knocked out before.
Yep.
We've seen Stipe not necessarily have the best fight IQ when it comes to figuring out what he's going to do, how he's going to attack an opponent. We've seen him get into brawls kind of unnecessarily. Yeah. And then you look at what Blaydes did. Blaydes didn't get into a brawl unnecessarily. Blaydes did exactly what you were supposed to do. You are supposed to, if you're able to, tool him on the feet with better technique. And then when he's thinking about that, then shoot in for the takedown. He did exactly what any reasonable coach would have game planned for him. And he might have just woken up a few minutes ago. So I'm, at this point, he can beat anyone not named Jesus, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, it's right. He's a live underdog in every match you're going to put him in. And yes, you could say that about a lot of heavyweights because the heavyweight knockout power. No, really, seriously, Derrick Lewis has displayed it on so many occasions. I swear. I mean, I don't want to rewatch the fight, but I swear when he fought Shamil Abdurakhimov, he was hurt. He was tired. He was done. He was getting taken down. He was getting pushed against the fence. He was worn out and smoked him in late into the fourth round. In that I'm not really that tired. Let me pour on the gas because I suddenly have cardio. In this weight class, in heavyweight, the way the logjam sits now, and with the UFC very apt to say, you called somebody out, that makes sense. Let's do it. That sounds to me like he's going to get Overeem. And that's fine. We know Overeem's lost, I think 2 in a row. I forget how many we know how badly he lost against Volkov. And it was that question about has Overeem hit that cliff with all that experience, with all that damage? I mean, he's got more knockouts than almost anybody, losses, that is. But, it's a spectacular performance. Probably won't go the distance. Probably will be a lot of fun while it lasted. And in the meantime, Stipe and Gane can do their thing, and then Jones waits it out. I have the weird feeling that Lewis is going to have to fight twice. I would not at all be surprised if the UFC he fights Ngannou, beats Ngannou, or I'm sorry, he fights Overeem, beats Overeem, Lewis that is, and then has to fight in a rematch against Volkov for the eliminator after the post John Jones thing, just because the way heavyweight turns, it's so slow for title defenses. It's one a year, at this rate. We're looking at next summer. That's a long time away. So I feel like Lewis getting 36 and up, tired of this, maybe finally his back is better. I mean, Duffy's only heard him say his back is full back to 100% a couple times before. Yeah, I think Lewis is going to have to keep fighting, even if he doesn't need to, even if he should fight for the title. I feel like this is the situation where he's going to be, having to keep punching his way through the rankings. But at the same time, Volkov Lewis too, man. If you put that over 5 rounds, I wonder what would happen. So I'm not mad at that idea.
Yeah, I also think we need to pay special attention to whether or not Lewis walked away unscathed in that Blaydes fight. My first impression watching it was that front leg was battered up, and it looked like something was really, really wrong with it, especially leading up to the knockout. So it looked like he tried to plant his weight on it several times, and he'd slide forward. So I wonder if there's any issue there. If there's no issue there, then I expect a quicker turnaround. But if there is an issue, maybe it's best to just sit down, wait, let the division play out while he gets healed up. So either way, I think he's in great position to, at the very least, pick up another nice, sweet main event check. So looking forward to what Derrick Lewis has to offer. But of course, the heavyweight division had a lot of other activity on this card as well. Respectively, Chris Dukakis and Tom Aspinall, they turned around aging vets Alexei Oleinik and Andrei Arlovski. Do you think it's time for the UFC to just match those two names? I mean, these are guys who I think between them both have somewhere over 70 fights. And actually, no, I think Oleinik has
75 by himself.
Yeah, so what they have, like 110 fights combined. Yeah, so about 110 fights combined for both of them. And yet they've never faced each other. Is it time to just go ahead and, let the senior citizens have at it, fellas? And G, of course.
Yes, I do. I'm with G. I think the UFC is in an on position that they keep having to match these names, these aging but still effective names against young, hungry talents, because they don't want to put them against, you don't want to put Andrei Arlovski against a Ciryl Gane. Just you don't want to put him up against a hungry guy. You don't want to put him against the Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We saw what happened. You don't want to put him against a Francis Ngannou. You saw what happened. It's their former champion. He's got the fangs. Everybody loves him. He looked like George Michael for a little while, so he's kind of a beloved face, whether we still think of him highly or not. I think so. I think this is not only a good fight, but I think this is the kind of thing where the UFC should take this and go, okay, look, we understand you want to keep fighting. You want to keep doing that. So why don't we just let you both fight each other then? So you're not disrupting the picture. You're not doing something else. You're not messing something else up. I look to, for example, Diego Sanchez calling his last fight. Now, granted, he wanted Conor, and obviously that's stupid, but he called for his fight, and he got his fight against Donald Cerrone for his farewell fight. So I think that kind of farewell fights where we look at that, UFC can almost bill it that way, and then build up the fight, put it on the main card, show some of their cool highlights. Thank you for all the memories. Andrei Arlovski, you got 50 fights or so. Oleinik's got 75 fights. Just show a counter of Oleinik with all his old footage, getting Ezekiel chokes. Ding! Ding! Just punch through that. Just that kind of footage to show that. I think the UFC owes it to those fighters. So I wish they would do that. I know they're listening right now. So UFC interns, get on that.
I agree. I'm all for the farewell retirement home type of fights. I'm down for it. They've put in their time. They've put in their work. I don't really want to see them fighting the Tom Aspinalls of the division. I don't want to see them fighting like JDS and Ciryl Gane. Like, what? But I get why the UFC is doing it. I truly believe they're using these matchups as ways, as negotiation tools to kind of push them out the UFC, to pay them less, because I really think these old fighters like Andrei are very expensive. You know what I mean? So I think why we're seeing these matchups, but I would prefer a farewell or a retirement type of fight. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Andrei versus Oleinik? Like, they're gonna bang, and if it goes to the ground, Oleinik might choke out, and I say why not? And it's promotable, like Jay said. You can bring up their old footage, you can promote it, you can say bye to them, you can do extensive interviews about their backgrounds. Like, I think it's a win-win, but I don't think it'll happen.
Just think of the ESPN, how they've been running things lately, putting up these infographics that look strangely familiar to Stat of the Week articles and pieces that have been put up. Anyway, the little infographics, just put one up of the many hairstyles of Andrei Arlovski and show his evolution over the years. There's so many angles to promote these kinds of things, and it breaks my heart they're not. Duffy, you disagree?
Well, I'm just picturing doing this time lapse of Arlovski where his hair goes like, roop, roop, and his nose is going like this.
Yeah, have you ever seen Arlovski in person? Because it's the wildest thing to stand in front of a man and his nose being completely pushed to one side and absolutely flat, like so flat you could write a piece of paper on top of it. It's crazy.
Well, it's like Mike Perry after that one fight, only Arlovski just left it that way for like years. like how do you, of all people, not know that you can get that shit fixed?
True, like,
no.
I had him, and it's true, and like his nose, it's very noticeable that something's wrong with it. You know what I mean? But he's hella nice. And I took a picture with him, but I'll never forget, like, the bridge of his nose is so damaged, it's unreal. But
London Bridge is falling. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'll wrap things up on this topic just by asking a simple question: how tastes my pee-pee? All right, so now let's move on to the swing or miss segment. Swing or miss, the heavyweight division is better than it's ever been in the UFC.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll swing. One, the new blood. I remember just the drought years 5 years ago, like before Blaydes really came along, where like the great hope of the division was like Marcin Tybura. It's like, this is the only dude that like is under 30, has a couple of different skills, and doesn't look like he could cut to 205. Like, he's the only young heavyweight we've got. You compare that to now, like, you know, Aspinall, Chris Dawkins coming out of nowhere, Curtis Blaydes, still just, you know, barely 30, and put me down as somebody who still thinks he is going to win a UFC title at one point. Now it may just be 2024 instead of 2022, but I don't think he's gone from it. The top 10, the top 10 is all good fighters now. You go back to even the so-called glory days when, like, you know, like when it was like, you know, Randy Couture and Tim Sylvia on top of the division, you know, when everyone was just kind of waiting to see if like Frank Mir would return to pre-motorcycle accident form. But you look in those days and you look down at the kind of the bottom of the top 10, you're like, oof, there's some not great fighters down there. We're finally to the point where there's a bunch of good fighters in this division and some that are young enough that they're still developing. Yeah. And the guy sitting on top of the division right now, you can make a good case that he's the greatest ever. This is the golden era for heavyweight in the UFC.
I am on board that wagon completely, man. I do. I like not only the fact that we have Stipe at the top of the division as a legit contender. I mean, when we were talking earlier about, you know, Fedor and Stipe 1 and 2, people have legitimate claims for one way or the other. You know, youth is there. I mean, we don't know how old Francis Ngannou actually is, but, you know, otherwise, you know, you look through the list and then go boom, 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 boom. Most of these guys, the mean age is not 43 like it had been before. There's a lot of young talent, promising talent. I think I was actually talking in the Sherdog.com Slack about how much I like the top 5 of this division, that it isn't full of names that have been there for the past 10 years. Like it used to be. Overeem was there and JDS was there, and rightfully so. They deserved their place in the sun. They did the things. They were winning the fights. They were beating everybody else. You know, Brock Lesnar was once the number 1 heavyweight in the world, so we have that too. But there are just great fighters, young fighters. There's a lot of new talent, and that's so weird to think about when we've often talked about, you know, the age of the fighters. And man, I really wish this division would get on track. I'm going to say something that you guys aren't going to like. I think heavyweight's better than bantamweight.
Ooh. Them fighting words.
Yeah, I do. I think bantamweight isn't as good as people.
That up. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I think there's great fighters. I'm not knocking Aljo Sterling or Corey Sandhagen or Rob Font, but then you got Cody Garbrandt in the top 4. Josie,
I thought you meant women's bantamweight. No, you're crazy.
No, man. Okay. Let's go through this thought exercise. The number 4 bantamweight in the world is Cody Garbrandt. Number 5 is Jose Aldo. Number 6 is Marlon Moraes. 7 is Frankie Edgar. 8 is Pedro Munoz, the guy that lost to Frankie Edgar. 9, Samir Rivera, who's, I believe, still on a losing streak. Rafael Assunção, still on a losing streak. Dominic Cruz.
Yes,
like the top 10 of bantamweight, I would give it to the heavyweight division, top 10 versus top 10. You can feel free to disagree and call me crazy. Don't worry. But I've been chewing on this.
We call you crazy, all right. Now, see, I think maybe if you talk about maybe the top 5 in bantamweight versus the top 5 in heavyweight, you might have an argument. I mean, just barely, possibly, maybe, kind of could. And that's mainly because Jose Aldo is winless at bantamweight and he's ranked number 5. And Cody Garbrandt, you know, just kind of getting out of his slump, you know, with his 3 consecutive knockout losses. That's kind of it, because the top 5 at heavyweight, with the exception of Stipe, are all people who haven't been knocked out. Well, no, Rozenstruik got knocked out by Ngannou.
Ngannou.
I mean, there's some parity between the top 5, but at the same time, killers. You know, Francis Ngannou, killer. Curtis Blaydes, we were pretty sure is a killer. Rozenstruik, what is his only loss besides the split decision in Ryzen to Ngannou? Derrick Lewis, Alexander Volkov 2.0, 3.0, 5.0, whatever he is. I think the heavyweight division, the top 5, and including plus Stipe, is fantastic.
I think you might have an argument with the top 5, but I think when you start branching outside of that, I think that's when things start kind of falling apart.
Right.
So, final verdict, yes, you are crazy. So, but thank you, Jay. We do appreciate your brand of insanity. All right, so let's move on from here. We're gonna go to our Eating Crow segment. This is where we get the chance to break out your favorite seasoning. I just pick up this thing called Buttery Steakhouse at Costco. It's delicious, goes great on steaks and popcorn and chicken and fish and everything else that I throw it on. Fries as well. It's really good stuff. So I'm gonna break out that and put it on my crow. What's got you eating crow this week, Ben? I'll start with you.
Oh, I went 5 for 12 in my picks on this card, so I've got a whole like buffet of crow. I'm like at Golden Crow Corral, just kind of rubbing my hands together and looking at the sneeze guard. I think the one where I didn't just get the result wrong, but just the way the whole fight played out did not look like I expected it to. That's going to have to be Darrick Minner versus Charles Rosa. Minner came into the UFC, and to me, he was just the very definition of a Midwest journeyman. I watched as many of his fights as I could find ahead of his UFC debut a few months back, and I was like, okay, he has 22 submissions, like 20 of them are in the first round, and like 18 of those are guillotines. He's kind of a burly wrestler who's got a good fast guillotine. Like, he's not a great grappler, and I was just dead wrong. I figured he'd be able to get Rosa down, just being the stronger guy, the college wrestler, but it was a top position clinic. He reduced Rosa to just throwing up low percentage submissions from the bottom, and every time he didn't just escape, he punished him. Oh, you're going to try an armbar? I'll take your back, and mash you from there for a while. Just complete domination, and obviously that's not the first time this has happened to Rosa before our very eyes, but Bryce Mitchell is a savant on the ground, and he's going to embarrass a lot of black belts before he's done. Minner completely leveled up in my eyes on Saturday night. And yeah, I'm just, you don't know what the legit prospect is going to look like. Maybe it is this just 22-11 guy from Nebraska instead of like this, 13-0 guy from Dagestan, with the 4-guard all around that our usual prospect look like these days. This is a sport that gives us late bloomers sometimes. And Minner's one of them, and he is my select cut of crow for the week.
Very nice pick right there. G, what is your eating crow this week?
What? Well, I picked Andrei Arlovski to beat Tom Aspinall, and that's why I'm going to eat lots of crow. Here's why, though. You got to understand why I did that, though. I didn't see enough from Tom, even though I know he's really good. You know what I mean? Like, his past tournaments, to me, he was supposed to beat them. It didn't really tell me much about him except that this guy's beating up people that should be. So when you put him up against Andrei Arlovski, someone that's a veteran, okay, but someone that also fights to his veteran age, you know what I mean? Like, he knows what to do. He knows his chin is weak. He knows how to ride out that box. He knows how to avoid punches. He knows what to do. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was going to, outwit Tom, and I was quite surprised to see that Tom not only beat him up with the fast hands, but they submitted him and jumped on a mistake when Andrei made. I was thoroughly impressed, and now I'm sold on Tom Aspinall. I'm good.
And that had to have been the quickest rear naked choke setup I've ever seen. I mean, he took his back instantly and sunk in the choke. It was, I mean, literally, I blinked, and next thing you know, Arlovski was tapping. So great work from Aspinall there. Good pick, G. Jay, what is your eating crow this week?
Yep.
This is not a humble brag because of the fact that I actually got the winner of this fight correct. However, the way I thought it was going to happen versus the way it actually played out, made me completely reevaluate my opinion on this fighter. I believe it was the second fight on the main card. Phil Hawes, Megatron, came in, a lot of momentum. He had just smashed Whitaker's training partner a couple months ago, and he looked like it was the sky's the limit for this guy. Like, this is a guy who showed up on the contender series, got kicked in the head, said, fine, I'll go to Bellator, wreck some guy, go to Brave and destroy some people, go back to contender series and just cut a tree down. Like that Kazimierz Bastayev guy was like 6'7", and he just got absolutely the tall man knocked out. And I was just, I was in on Phil Hawes. Like the way he knocked out Bestayev was like how I've seen Stefan Struve go down. Just that, okay, this guy is for real. And then he completely laid an egg against Nassourdine Imavov. Now, I wasn't particularly huge on Imavov. I had seen his first fight. He grinded out Jordan Williams, which, okay, fine. That was whatever. I saw him on European Aries FC in their first event, and he beat, I can't remember who he beat, but I had seen what he had done. I'd seen enough of his body of work to know, okay, he might be able to control this fight, but Hawes has striking going away. And Hawes got rocked about as badly as a guy can get rocked. He was on baby. I think when I was writing up the play-by-play for Shirt Hog, I ran out of ways to describe how he is being rocked. Like he was on ice skates, he was on baby deer legs, he did the stanky leg. Like I was out of my descriptors for ways that he kept getting nailed. And that does not bode well against a guy who I knew as a grinder. So even though I picked Phil Hawes to smash and he still won the fight, I'm eating crow because I was really high on Phil Hawes to a degree where I told people you should watch out for this guy named Megatron. If he runs into a guy that can take a shot, has cardio for the more than like 5 minutes, can outlast the storm and land back, Phil Hawes is in trouble. So I'm eating crow on the sky's the limit idea for Phil Hawes.
Very, very good pick there. Now, Jay, in the future, if you need more descriptors for someone's leg,
Please,
look like they're giving out, a timely one right now would be the Shmoney dance. He's doing the Shmoney dance because Bobby Shmurda's getting out of jail tomorrow.
Oh,
so
yeah. Okay.
Just put it out there. I know, G, I know you appreciate that.
Okay.
You know, you're on the NY hip hop.
Brooklyn. Yep. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it is what it is. So here we go. Now, my eating crow this week comes courtesy of myself for expecting nice things, knowing that mixed martial arts doesn't give those things that we most look forward to and feel like we deserve. Because I was really looking forward to Jakar Close versus Luis Pena. I talked at length about it last week, and then I was like, man, Chaz Skelly versus Jamal Emmers. Oh, I can't wait. It's snatched for me as well. I'm just saying I'm very happy that Jamal Emmers had those back spasms before he stepped in the cage. I'm glad it didn't happen during the fight. Got a chance to speak with him a couple times. He's a nice guy and he's a good dude. Would not like to see anything like that bad happen to him. Hopefully they rebook that and everybody's all right and they can get on and get paid the way they should. So that will be my eating crow because I'm stupid for expecting nice things to happen. All right, now let's move on from here because a big topic of discussion came about, I think, the day after we taped last week, and that is Bellator MMA has now they're now doing their own rankings, staffed by media. So I just want to get the panel's thoughts on this. Like, one, do you think this is the best thing for Bellator to be doing? But more importantly, is this the best thing for media members to be doing? Would you, sign yourself up for a rankings panel?
Crickets.
Absolutely. As a media member, no, because I think that this will create some sort of bias. It just leaves room to, I don't know, maybe favoritism, bias, but I'm not comfortable with media members being on it for that particular reason, because they do have to discuss the fighters in an unbiased way, and now you're deciding on rankings and this and that. I do think that it makes me a little uncomfortable, but I do think Bellator should start doing something like this. I just don't agree with MMA Media being on the panel. And I don't think I would enjoy being on the panel. I'd rather cover media events than also do that and be on the panel. But I think there's room for like error and bias. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it, especially without knowing exactly how it's going to go, how it's going to function, what sort of transparency there's going to be.
I was actually individually requested to join the panel, and before making my determination anyway, I had a lot of questions. And you know me, I'm a question guy. I want to know the answers. I want to know the details. So I just, here's all the questions I have. And they weren't answered to my liking. This is of no disrespect to Bellator and Bellator's organization that set this up. But upon discussion with colleagues and getting with the information received, I said, I don't feel comfortable with this. There's a lot going on here. There's still too many unanswered questions. And the fact that Bellator, the organization, assumes creative control essentially on the final word of the process run me the wrong way. That Bellator can, and this is specifically listed on Bellator's own press release that they sent out, so I'm not fabricating anything, is that Bellator can not only say who they will allow to be ranked or not ranked, but they can make the final call about a particular issue, a particular vote. They'll use a third party, but Bellator reserves the right to blah, blah, blah. And I didn't like that. I don't like that one bit. I think if this is an independent rankings system, it's an independent ranking system. But here's the thing. If there were to be rankings and there were to be media rankings, automatically there is a conflict of interest, because we as media members are coming at all these fighters, all these events from a neutral, objective news coverage, event covering standpoint. Once we start weighing in on the rankings and the whatever, what have you, it starts to impact the fighters directly, their careers, their livelihoods, their future matchups. So it now becomes a matter of media, in a small fraction of a way, is now dictating how events and how fights are made. And I don't like that. I don't want to have any say on matchmaking. And I would. They specifically stated at the very beginning, the mission statement is Bellator will use these rankings for matchmaking purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So now, essentially, media members have some say. And now, if the media members will say a fighter that should be in the top 10, if they pick him as the top 5, he will be writing a top 5 in that way. You can imagine the possibilities. And the other issue I have for the current rankings panel as it is, there are 15 members. 15 members, and 20% of the panel is from one particular outlet. Now, not to say that outlet, but you can see it's all public information, will vote in any particular way and will, there will be any malfeasance. But you have to avoid the appearance of impropriety. You have to avoid the possibility that something could go wrong, because spoiler alert, when something could go wrong, it always does. It's not a process that should have 15 voices. If there is a media panel, it should be open to all media of whatever, maybe make a significant, say, have some sort of a threshold, but it should be made available to everybody on SureDog, on MMA Junkie, on MMA Weekly, on MMA Fighting, on CBS Sports. Then if there's an aggregate of 150 voices, okay, then there isn't as much of a conflict of interest, because we are working together as an aggregate. We are not working together with a major voice that my vote could make enough of a difference to change the trajectory of a fighter's career. And that way, if there's full involvement, okay, then the media is trying to do this as an objective body to be a representative of all media, and not a very small cross-section of specifically selected media members from Bellator. So, yeah, I think there's a couple things that could work out. Just saying.
Jay, I think that was very well said. I mean, when I look at this panel, like first off, or looking at the names on this panel, at least the people that I'm familiar with,
it's legit.
Are legit people. They're very legit and put out fantastic content. And at least a couple of people on this panel, I would consider personal friends, like people that I am very personally fond of and would talk to on at least a semi-regular basis outside of the fight world.
Yeah.
But I do see some issues with this one. There is a little bit too much MMA Junkie on here. I think just having that one side, having that much weight on there. Brian Campbell, great guy. I love Brian Campbell. Partner. Yeah, he's a broadcast partner for CBS Sports, and that just doesn't seem like a good fit for a journalist to be that involved with matchmaking and whatnot. Now, Jay, I like your idea here, and I think it's something that I've wanted to see for quite some time. When the UFC put their rankings out and had media members as part of the rankings, like, well, why not just put together the rankings that every site does individually on its own? Because that way there's not a single person being compromised. Because I remember, as a member of Sherdog staff, I know you guys are still doing this. I was part of a regular ranking. We updated it every single week, and there was robust discussion about who was who, what was what. And our boss, the editor-in-chief at Sherdog.com, Mike Fridley, made sure that every relevant name that had a fight going on was represented in his spiel before that rankings panel was opened up for our votes. And it was a very centralized process within us. I don't know how Junkie does it. I'm not even sure if MMA Fighting does their own rankings. I don't know what their process is like, if they do, or MMA Weekly or Fansided or whatever other sites you can point at. But if everyone has their own process and we have this diverse pool of writers at each individual site and you all pile it up together, even if there is someone biased on that panel, well, those results sure to get diluted. And you have the average of what everyone really feels over there. It would take a great deal of collusion to kind of spoil this pot. The way it's set up now, I'm not going to question anyone's integrity on this list, because like I said, the people that I know on this list are full of integrity, and for the most part, they do fantastic work.
Right.
But just not having that possibility is very, very important in my eyes. You don't want to have the appearance of something going particularly wrong. And of all things for Bellator to copy from the UFC, why did they pick the absolute worst thing that the UFC does? And the internalized records? Why? Why?
I was just going to say that. Like, you guys can improve upon something that's already not doing so good over here in the UFC. Like,
it's like,
seriously?
Y'all could have picked anything else. And this is what you picked. All right.
Yep.
That really shocked the hell out of me. But hey, it is what it is. But what do you guys say, Jay?
I want to give Duffy his time to redeem himself and shine.
Oh, that's right. Oh, sorry, Ben.
Well, I don't really have anything to add to it. I'm not. Like, I don't hold it against anybody who's doing it. I wouldn't want even the potential appearance that I would be compromised. And on the flip side, because I think of the UFC rankings, I wouldn't want my name necessarily slapped onto and associated with something that I couldn't actually get behind. Because as soon as I saw one of those rating sheets where they gave you a name and they're like, okay, you're allowed to rank this guy between number 4 and number 8, I would have been like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, like I that wouldn't be my rankings. It wouldn't be my real opinion. And I wouldn't, not like I'm a big deal, but I wouldn't want my name to help lend any legitimacy to it.
Yeah, very, very well said there. So all good points. I mean, and again, I'll echo the sentiments of everyone else on the panel. I probably said it all already. But yeah, not a problem with anybody on this list as an individual necessarily. It's just that this just feels inappropriate for supposedly unbiased media members to be a part of. At least I consider, when doing this sort of work, I don't want to be part of the story. I want to tell the story. I want to interpret the story. I want to present the story for the layman. But I don't necessarily want to be a part of it. And typically when you see when we become a part of the story, normally something really, really went wrong. You look at, for instance, what we talked about last week with the Ariel Helwani and Gina Carano things. That's what happens when you become a part of the story. Something went terribly wrong. I can think of Vitor Belfort threatening John Morgan at a press conference. Something went wrong. That's when you become part of the story. So I don't want to invite myself becoming part of the story on a regular basis. I'll pass on that one.
Exactly. And isn't that what MMA media is about? Like, you're impartial. You're not a part of the story. You're reporting the story. You're the messenger. You're the voice. You're not a part of it. You understand? So that's why I totally agree with you. And I was a little bit uncomfortable on this panel. And then to hear Jay say that Bellator is in full control, It's questionable, but like you said, there's good people on it, but still there's room for error, I think.
Yeah, like I see, I see a name like John Morgan, who, we've had on the show before. He is the pinnacle of doing this job properly, and a great guy. Look, definitely a friend of mine. I see
Great
John
guy,
Morgan's
yeah.
name. I see Shaq on this. Another guy to consider a friend. I see Nolan King, who's done nothing but good work. I see those names, and I see nothing wrong with them. I think they will do their utmost to uphold their personal integrity and their standards. Same thing with Brian Campbell as well. I see them doing their damnedest to make sure their end of the job is done right. Problem is, when it's out of their hands, things go wrong.
Well, yeah.
So this is why I have an issue with this, but no disrespect to anybody on the panel. Do your thing. All right, let's move on. Oh yeah, what you guys say, G?
No, I have the list in front of me, and I see some familiar names. Well, Amy Kaplan, John Morgan. I totally agree with you. These are some stellar names, but I think we're just all in agreement that there's just room for error, or we just got to wait and see this out.
Yeah. Definitely. So now let's move on to perhaps the greatest title segment in all of media history, and that is I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons. So it's time to share something that surprised you in the fight world over the past week, or ironically did not surprise you. I will begin with you, G. What is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I feel bad because I might steal your. I was shocked at the Michael Chandler African American.
Let's have that conversation.
To Black History Month. I don't mean to steal your thunder, but that I was caught off guard with that segment. Like I was at home and just was like, oh my God, are we celebrating white parents that adopted a Black child, or are we celebrating? Like I was totally caught off guard by that segment. But that was mine.
All right. So you know what, because I feel as though I might go off. So
Please.
I'm gonna let Ben and Jay speak their piece, and then we're gonna go back to that.
You get to now, yeah.
We're gonna go back to that. Ben, what is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Exactly.
Is anyone else going to talk about Travis Fulton?
It's all Fulton by far. It's all yours, baby.
It's all yours.
All right. So I was surprised just today to find in the news Travis the Iron Man Fulton. He is by all accounts the most experienced fighter in MMA history. He has well over 300 documented fights. Considering that he started out in the 90s, he probably has more than that. To even talk about his career is to just invite a statistical fireworks display. He's fought, 320 times. He's fought something like 150 times just in Iowa. It's insane. He had been basically retired for most of the last 5 years. He came back for one fight against Shannon Rich like a year and a half or 2 years ago. Talk about some statistical fireworks leading up to that. He apparently has been arrested, indicted on counts of child pornography, ownership, distribution, and solicitation to create. So obviously these are all just allegations at this point. Presumably he'll have his day in court, but just so you know, the allegations are not just, oh, your browser history had you going to like some fucked up dark website. No, like this is the full Monty. Like he owned hard media copies of this stuff and was accused of soliciting basically a child to create some of these images. Extremely disturbing information. And yeah, I'm surprised. I did not expect Travis Fulton to come up in the news very often for the rest of my lifetime of taking in the sport. And if it was for a brush with the law, I just assumed it would be for getting the fight in the Waffle House parking lot or some shit. He seemed on the face of it to be the kind of guy who would be capable of basic mischief, but not malignant, horrifying stuff like this. So he's innocent until proven guilty, but anecdotally, these don't seem like the kind of charges that are very often leveled frivolously against people simply because even the taint of it ruins lives and reputations. So we'll see how it plays out, but I am definitely surprised and in a very unpleasant way to find Travis Fulton in the news this week.
Yeah, that was another MMA Monday. Good God.
Yeah.
Jay, what is your I'm not surprised Mr.
Right.
Falcons moment this week?
Well, I was coming into this with an abundance of options and feeling like I should cheat and cover all of them, but I'm not. I'm going to give one its due. I'm not going to talk about Felicia Spencer fighting a 1-0 opponent. I'm not going to talk about Fulton doing horrible things. I'm not going to talk about Invicta deciding or ending up leaving Fight Pass for whatever reason, because those are all very surprising situations and I'm not sure about, but I don't know enough information about. However, there is one story I know a bunch more information about. This story broke on Thursday this past week, and it was from an event that happened the previous Tuesday in Afghanistan in an organization called Truly Grand Fighting Championship. Now, we at Sherlock have worked with them. They send their information to Sherlock Fight Finder. It's a whole process. There's a not a relationship, but there's a back and forth with the promoter. So things are on fairly even, legitimate, quote unquote, terms, as best as you can call them. And you may or may not see a version of this on an FF Files in the future, but I don't want to digress there. In Afghanistan, a main event happened between a local fighter who came back from a failed kidnapping and he was stabbed multiple times, was out for a long time, recovered to have his first fight back. Home country guy in Afghanistan against some Brazilian guy who had literally never fought out of Brazil. Like, this is a guy who fought 40 times. Everyone was in Brazil. So they flew this guy in, hoping, praying. You can imagine the reasons why somebody would fly a guy from there in. Anyway, fighter from Afghanistan has a back and forth fight. And then the second round, the Afghanistan guy knees his opponent in the chest. And the fighter goes, whoa, like a Street Fighter knockout, like if you end the final shot and Guile goes flying. So you look at that and go, no. That you can see the replay. The knee landed here, acted like face. Okay, we got an issue here. Did some more digging, and we're kind of questioning it, but the result stands officially until the fighter came out with his story. This is a long-winded story. I apologize to the audience, but it will be worth it. He posted on Facebook his side of the story, where he claimed he flew into Afghanistan, a place he'd never been, doesn't speak Pashto or Farsi, so he doesn't speak the language. His corner tested positive for COVID, so he has one Iranian guy cornering him that I don't think he knows very well. So foreign guy, foreign country, no language, and a man comes to his locker room with a gun, shouting, doesn't know what he's saying, shouting, pointing, whatever he's saying, and doing the whole I have a gun thing. And the fighter's like, well, what's going on here? And no one can tell him because no one speaks Portuguese, because that's what happens in MMA. So fight happens. First round ends. The same guy comes up to him, backed by armed security guards, waving his gun around, shouting at him again. So the fighter's like, am I going to die? He said, my main goal was to preserve my life. The fighter comes out and says, I thought they were going to kill me if I won this fight. So I threw the fight. I apologized to the promoter. I said, I don't blame the organizer. I don't blame them. This was an odd situation, but give me a rematch in a neutral country where you're not going to have me killed. And the organization has kind of sort of not really disputed it by saying, well, sometimes these things happen in MMA, essentially, and saying, okay, well, we're gonna talk about this. There may have been mistranslation or a joke or something. So a lot of shady things going on there. And why am I surprised? Because I'm not surprised at all, in one bit. This is about as, yep, I can see that happening story, and it breaks my heart that I am so jaded that I go, yeah, he's probably right. He probably He probably thought he was going to die because the guy was waving a gun at him. And then between rounds, a guy comes back and it comes at him with his own backed guys. It wasn't the security saying, hey, knock it off. It was he got security and they approached him in his corner. So, man, MMA is so messed up, guys. I don't know. And please take it away.
It's a little rough around the edges.
Yes. I struggle to call it a sport at times. So no shock on what I'm not surprised. Mr. Falcons is also, as G pointed out, the Black History tribute that featured one Michael Chandler. Now, let's go on record with this right off. Now, I don't know Michael Chandler personally. I've never met him or talked to him or anything of the like. So I can't speak to what he is as a human being. I do think it's admirable to adopt a child. That is an admirable thing, to give a child a home and give a child love. And I don't want to disparage him necessarily on this. Although I do think your parlor account is real suspect, homie. That's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother discussion. But I definitely want to give myself a firm middle finger toward whoever at the UFC approved that bullshit and said that shit was appropriate. Please explain to me what that has to do with Black history from, as a Black man who has taken the efforts to educate himself somewhat on some things of my cultural history. That has fuck all to do with it. This presenting this white savior trope as Black History Month is fucking asinine. How many Black fighters were on this card? How many Black fighters are in the organization? If you want to highlight parenting a Black child, well, there's a lot of Black people in the UFC with children. Did you think to say, hey, Tyron Woodley, you're 3 or 4 kids that at least from what have known him as a father, like I've been on the phone with him as he's tending to his children, sounds like a pretty loving man and very doting on his children. Man, you could have highlighted a man like that, a Black man who is raising Black children. That might qualify for Black History Month. Probably not really, not even history necessarily, but it's better than having a white guy who just adopted a Black child. Sorry. And I don't care who that offends. I don't give a fuck if you don't like what I'm saying. As you probably know, if you've watched this show at all, I don't really give a fuck what anyone thinks. I just say what I say. That is pretty goddamn stupid. You had Derrick Lewis on this card in the main fucking event. This man has literally gone and saved lives in natural disasters. During Hurricane Harvey, This man was literally out saving people. And it's probably what caused him to get pulled out of the Verdun fight, because his back started acting up on him not too long after he was literally pulling people out of homes that were flooded, including someone who was waving around the damn Confederate flag, and he saved that man too. That is something that's notable for Black history. That is something that's uplifting to people that look like me and think like me and live like me. Not just the idea that this white man is going to save me or save my children. I'm sorry, that's real fucking stupid. That's real fucking tone deaf. And quite frankly, I don't think, maybe tone deaf is the wrong word, because I feel a lot of intention going in that direction.
I thought it was intentional.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me, because remember back when they had the George Floyd tribute on that broadcast, and the first thing I said is, I'm giving y'all the side eye because this don't feel right. You don't highlight Black history with some bullshit like that and then go and promote causes that are the exact opposite of uplifting minority communities. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know anything about our history that says, adopting children. Like when I study Black history, or, when I went to a Black college, or when I'm doing my own independent reading, adopting Black children does come up in our history. I don't know how our history was celebrated when they decided.
If your history was watching Different Strokes, maybe.
Right. This is what I'm saying. It was.
like
All I know
that.
is as a black woman at home, I was just like, "What's going on?" Like,
Yeah, it's like,
what
yo,
is
what
this
the
about?
fuck is happening, bro? I was so confused. Like, yo, what the fuck is this shit? It took me a second for the rage to
Yeah.
build up because I was shell shocked for like a few minutes there, just staring at the screen. Like, I know I didn't just see that bullshit. I struggle with the words because I'm that angry and that offended. This same organization that will post a tribute up to George Floyd and then allow the man who is disparaging the cause of people who are angry about that and actually feel something personal about it. He's going up there calling them terrorists. And yeah, let's promote this guy.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's great. He's our top fighter. This is the sort of bullshit that I'm really sick of seeing. Like this is one of those cases where you probably should have just shut the fuck up. That probably should have been the first thing to do. Shutting the fuck up is an elite level skill that not enough people have mastered. UFC, get your black belt in shutting the fuck up. How about that? Because quite frankly, this is a case where you should have just shut the fuck up. And this is another reason why representation matters. This is another reason why it is important to have people of all backgrounds and ethnicities behind these boardrooms. For the events that I've worked, the UFC does have like PR staff that are of color. And, you know, I can think of a few names of black individuals that work for the UFC. I am almost completely certain that they were not in the room when that decision was made. This is why you have them in that room, because someone sees that and says, knock this all the way to fuck off. Don't even bring up this shit. If you want to promote Michael Chandler, please do so. He's a great fighter. Promote him. But he ain't got shit to do with Black history, bro. He ain't. Okay? Promote him as a fighter.
Why didn't they do that just independently when they, you know, when Chandler fights next fight? Throw that in there. I can handle that. Because I think
that is how you do it.
Yeah, because I do like the fact that he did adopt a black child and he's giving that child a wonderful opportunity. It's like I don't want people to miss, you know, the point of why African Americans and are a bit offended by this. You know, it just, adopting a black child has nothing to do with celebrating our history. And instead they made our history during a time when we celebrate in the month about white parents. It was just incredibly offensive. And also the UFC has black staff, black fighters, all types of wonderful feel-good stories that involve black people. And instead they chose to celebrate Michael Chandler adopting a black child. It was just such a slap in the face. And Anthony, I think it was intentional. I think they paraded Trump. They made it very clear that Kobe's comments were not racist, and he, you know, it's a place where they can speak their mind. But yet you don't check him when he even calls other black fighters racist when they're not. You know what I mean? Like he said Usman's father was a criminal. Black Lives Matter. People are terrorists and. Yada, he's disrespecting
and
black
smoke signals from Usman's village and blatantly racist language.
And that's why I believe this was intentional. I think the UFC was like, we're not going to get them all riled up this month. Let's just give them, you know, this adoptive story, and we're really showing our true colors about what we really think of African American history. And I think it was a slap in the face, and it was intentional. And I think that's why you're seeing the responses online from black people. I discussed it on my podcast as well, just as emotionally and vehemently as Anthony, because it was offensive. And everybody's having their turn discussing this because it was a sham.
Like I don't need to have to say much, but I missed the very beginning of it because I was working on play-by-play at the time. So when I caught Michael Chandler, I swear to God, I thought it was promotional hype that he was going to headline an event and it was going to be a surprise or something, like, because there's the talk that Chandler's going to fight Ferguson. So I legitimately thought for a couple seconds, okay, they're hyping a Chandler main event. That's weird. And then I saw what was happening. Just don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's
correct.
Yep. So
that would be better. Dead air would have been better than that promo.
Just ignore the whole month. Just like, you know, you ignored Kobe comments. Just like you ignored the, you know, Mike Perry and N-word. Just like there's no code of conduct when it comes to disrespecting black athletes or just disrespecting even black actors when Mike Perry was cutting up, you know, that actor.
Yeah,
there's no repercussions. There's no repercussion of racism, so just keep it pushing when it's time to celebrate Black people this month. And they paraded Trump, you know, and it was just such a slap in the face. So skip the whole month altogether. I wouldn't have noticed. I don't expect the UFC to celebrate Black people, especially after they paraded Trump the way that they did. I don't expect it. I was quite shocked that they decided to do something this month.
Yeah, and I guess they thought it was a step up from their tribute to Black commentators when you go from Jim Brown at the first event to all the way to Daniel Cormier at the event that day, where it's like, well, you had nobody in between. Maybe you should just shut the fuck up. So once again, shutting the fuck up is a skill that the UFC should master. Have your black belt in shutting the fuck up, please, and get that shit with stripes and shit too. Like, yeah. You need a second-degree black belt and shutting all the way the fuck up. So correct. I'll leave it there because I'll probably blow a gasket if I keep talking about this shit. So let's move on to the speed bag. This is when I get to flex my authority on you mofos. And I have a feeling this one is going to be pretty funny because we do have a slight delay for G, which means her clock is ticking before she even knows it. And yes, I love the power games. So you guys are going to have 10 seconds to answer these questions, and make sure you pay attention to when your name is called because we are going round robin. Oh, that means you, Gina. So this is going to be fun. All right. Now I'm going to turn the volume up on my bell here. I'm going to start with you, Ben. If Leon Edwards beats Belal Muhammad, does he get the title shot?
No, he will never get a title shot. They'll make him fight Derrick Lewis next if he beats Muhammad. They're never going to give that motherfucker title shot.
Oh,
Jay.
You know, Duffy's right. I don't think he's going to fight Derrick Lewis, but he's going to fight like Stephen Thompson. He's going to fight Masvidal. They're going to make him keep fighting contenders. So no.
G.
He keeps fighting until he loses because that's what the UFC wants. Boom.
Oh, and you made the time. Oh, that was beautiful. They said fuck you to that clock. That's what's up. All right. So question number 2. I'm going to begin with you on this one, Jay. Why does the UFC keep matching Holly Holm up against possible contenders?
Because she's the opposite of Leon Edwards. I feel like they're just trying to push her into all the title shots she can get. It's just I don't know. I wish I knew.
Because she's marketable. And they want her at the top because they think she's so, and I'm sick of it. That's why.
Ben.
I really have no idea. I think they're hoping she'll beat Leon Edwards.
Holly Holm versus Derrick Lewis. Make it happen.
All right, G, you're going to start off the third and last question. Neither Angela Hill nor Ashley Yoder knew they were fighting soon until a week before their fight. Should more matchups happen this way?
Hell no, that's not okay. So when they gas out and it's a horrible fight, we're going to complain about it. We need a whole camp.
All right. Ben.
I wish it wouldn't happen this way. The best fights happen when fighters have time to prepare for each other, truly get into shape. It'll be fine, but not ideal.
All right, Jay.
I love the idea in theory that both fighters find out at the same time, but not a week before they fight. Give them a few minutes to prepare, maybe. That might help.
Yeah, definitely good answers there. And everybody respected the clock, and I didn't get to flex my authority on you mofos. So I'm a little bit disappointed right now. But that gives me
last week now.
Oh yeah. Oh, last week was a clusterfuck of clock mishaps. All right, so here we go. Now I'm going to switch the clock over to 30 seconds. I will answer all 3 questions in succession. The clock will begin after reading the first question. So first question reads: if Leon Edwards beats Belal Muhammad, does he get a title shot? No, Leon Edwards will earn himself another fight against another contender, which will be another chance to win a fight against another contender, and so on, rinse and repeat until he's like 70. All right. Why does the UFC keep matchmaking Holly Holm against possible contenders? Because she looks like Frankie Edgar to them. And 3, Angela Hill and Ashley Yoder matchmaking. I don't want to see that too often. I want to see good fights. I want to see people prepared. I want to see the fighters at their best. This is all the way fuckery. All right, there we go. So that concludes the speedback. Thank you, G. See, these guys don't compliment me enough on this show. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Oh,
And I like
Well,
the
thank
speech
you.
before the speed bag. It got us in check. That speech, it made us all get our shit together and speak in 10 seconds. So good job. Michael
Hey,
Moore.
hey, Jay, Ben, I don't see you guys bringing out notepads and writing this shit down, okay? This is what you need to do. This is what it's about on the Walkout Network, baby. Let's get this work. All right. Now that my masturbatory soliloquy has ended, now we can move on to the final segment of the show here. UFC Vegas 20, I believe it's what we'll be calling it on Twitter. We've got Ciryl Gane versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I know I screwed that up, but you know who I'm talking about, so it's all good. Oh wow, I still left the bell on. Oh shit. Oh wow, I still left the bell on. I don't even know how to stop it now. But it's all good. So everybody, let's see here. Where are we at?
We have 30 seconds on the clock to talk about.
I know, right? Shit, I feel like I'm under pressure now. What are our predictions for that main event? Let's start with that. G, who you got?
Who we got? Rozenstruik. I think Gane.
Gane West. You got
Do I
it?
have
All right.
time or no? I ran out of time, right?
Oh no. No, you're good. You're good. I just forgot to
It's
turn
a
the
hard
clock
one
off because
for
I'm
me.
an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards Ciryl Gane. Or Ciryl Gane, I should say. I'm leaning toward him, simply because we've
Gane.
seen,
That's not
we've
his
seen
name.
Rozenstruik get outclassed over the distance, against Overeem. Although he did end up winning that fight at the very end, we haven't seen that happen with Gane. We've just seen him annihilate everybody, and until I see something different, that's what I got to side with. And we've seen Rozenstruik get slept before. Granted, it was against Ngannou, and he was technically the better fighter in that brief exchange. If you've seen the slow-mo of him charging, him like backing up as Ngannou was just wildly charging, he tagged him like 3 or 4 times. It's just that his shots didn't feel the same as Ngannou's. But I think over the course of time, I think Ciryl Gane should win this fight. Although I would not run to the betting booth with this, because I mean, this is just a matchup between two really technical, skilled kickboxers, and at heavyweight, anybody's about to go to sleep in that. So I'll go Gane very hesitantly. Ben, who you got? Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, can I just add something real quick?
Of course.
Because I messed up my pick, even though I picked Gane. Now, because the bell threw me off. I thought I was like,
hey, my fault.
I'm picking Gane because I actually think he has more. It's okay. I'm picking Gane because he actually has more tools. I think we've seen him, go for submissions. His gap is wild, like he's straightforward. And to me, Rozenstruik is just a boxer with some decent takedown defense. But I've seen more from Gane, so I'm going to go with him. I think he has more tools in the bag. He can come forward with any type of strikes, submission attempts if it goes on the floor, and he's got the gap to do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, good analysis there, Ben. Who you got?
I have Gane as well. I hate to use the term overrated, because I think Rozenstruik is legitimately a top 10 heavyweight right now, but I think he had maybe a little more sizzle than he needed when he got to the UFC, just because his first knockout or two were so spectacular. When they get in the cage together, I do think Gane is probably a little more defensively sound than Rozenstruik. He's not quite as wild, but they're both big dudes. Gane is much bigger, and it'll be very obvious once they're in there. In terms of lean body mass, Gane's a 30-pound bigger guy. Rozenstruik has walked into the cage around 230 before. Gane looks like a mid-level villain from a Jason Bourne movie, just like this giant European black dude who's really handsome. He just needs like a black turtleneck or something. But he is huge. And athletic and fluid on his feet. He's a scary dude and still developing. I mean, he's got 7 fights. I'm actually glad that some of his fights in the UFC have gone into the second round or even gone the distance. Just get the man some seasoning.
Yep.
Jay, who you got?
Well, first of all, I'd like to issue a correction. When I mentioned Rozenstruik earlier on in the broadcast, I mentioned he lost a split decision in Rizin. He actually won a split decision over Andrei Kovalev. So he didn't actually have that early loss for some reason. I thought he did. It was more the fact that he had gone the distance, because otherwise basically all of his performances in Jairzinho Rozenstruik had been early knockouts. Like, if he went to the second round, it was like 50 seconds to knock Junior Albini and his diaper off. So it was a really quick set of performances. Now, Rozenstruik, God, is it weird that a guy that has had 6 fights in the UFC, you can look at and look at him and go, I think the jury's still out on this guy. Because I think the jury's still out on this guy. And that's so strange to think for a kickboxer who I watch kickbox too. This guy knocks people dead. Like, I don't understand how I'm still on the fence, but then I look at his resume. Baby Albini obviously was his first UFC fight. Alan Crowder, a guy who is notorious for walking face first into a knockout punch. Andrei Arlovski, who has done that thing a couple times. Alistair Overeem has also done the dance more than once. And his last win, like Ciryl Gane, is a knockout in the second round of Junior Dos Santos. So both of these guys I don't trust yet. Both of these guys, I don't believe they're top 5 guys yet. And I don't believe that a win for one of these guys should put them in the top 5. Like we talked about earlier, how the top 5 is so fascinating, and then how I believe the heavyweight division trumps the bantamweight division, not going back and not relitigating that. But I don't know. I don't know what Rozenstruik is truly capable of when he's pushed to the breaking point, because he lost the fight against Overeem until a questionable stoppage from Dan Miragliotta when he did unlicensed facial surgery on Overeem with that big shot. So, and then Francis Ngannou walked forward like a Looney Tunes villain and clocked him. So I feel like there should be more tools for Rozenstruik on the feet. I think he has the power advantage. I think he has what it takes to finish Gane and do what no one else has. But Gane is long. Gane fights long. Gane has surprising skills in the ground. Who drops for a heel hook with 15 seconds left in the fight and pulls it off? Granted, level of competition. I think just because of the fact that he did that thing to Overeem, I'm going to give Rozenstruik the edge in this fight.
All right.
Well, the UFC is terrified of Rozenstruik because his last 4 fights, Dan Miragliotta has been the ref for all 4 of them.
Yes, sir.
That's basically like reinforcing the cage because some heavyweight shit is going to happen.
Heavyweight stuff. That's what's happening.
Somebody to be able to pull this dude off, if the other guy is too knocked out.
All right, so we're going to wrap things up with just a quick spill. Give me one fight on this card that you're looking forward to. G, I will begin with you.
Let me take a gander. Anybody want to go while I take a quick look? There's so many cards, so many fights.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I'll go. Dude, Alex Cowboy Oliveira versus Randy Brown. These are they're 2 good welterweights, 2 exciting welterweights, but they're 2 of the pound-for-pound leaders in crazy, wild shit happening in their fights. Like, if this goes according to style, it will end with one dude knocking the other guy out from like a handstand position with a hidden knife from his trunks while like blood rains down on both of them from the rafters. I can't wait for it. Give me Cowboy Oliveira versus Randy Brown. Something stupid and crazy and amazing is going to happen, and I am so here for it.
Ben, I hate to break it to you, at least on Tapology, that fight is considered canceled or fizzled. I see it listed as Randy Brown versus Alex Oliveira. Brown withdrew.
Oh, yes. It is. It's off the card. It just was.
Just now since we start recording. Oh wow. So
today,
Ben.
Maybe it
looks like.
Yep.
Wow. So
right. Then fuck it. I'm taking PTO this weekend.
All right, G, go ahead and share with us the fight you're looking forward to.
I got it, man. Listen, I'm really looking forward to Kevin Kroom versus Alex Harris. Okay, I love Kevin Kroom's the Hillbilly. I got him in front of me now. the hillbilly. I love his debut against Roosevelt Roberts. I love that choke he got against the cage. I love his attitude. I like that he also has experience. This guy's been around the block twice. And I like what Alex Caceres is right now. He's kind of on fire, feeling good. You know, like it's almost like he's in his moment. He's in his time. But this is going to be, quiet as kept, a real test for Alex, because I think Kroom can bring it to him. But then at the same time, Alex can win this fight as well. You know, like I'm like this between the both of them, that gets me going. Like I can't really pick a winner yet, but I am pumped.
All right.
That's
Jay, give me one that you're looking forward to on this card.
So obviously Caceres Kroom was the one, just because of the sheer, you know, ridiculousness, because Kroom, well, I apologize to Kroom on a past broadcast based on my expectations of his skills relative to what he pulled off in the cage. And Alex Caceres doesn't ever let me down, but I'm going to go for sheer violence potential in this fight. And it's a preliminary matchup that I just don't see ending in any other way besides one of the fighters sleeping. And Ant knows what I'm talking about, because William Nightmare Knight and Atomic Alonzo Menafield, oh my God. Like one of them, I think, has an 89% knockout rate, and the other one has an 89% knockout rate. And one of them has gone the distance once, and the other one has gone the distance once. So, like, I don't see... I mean, like, I believe both of their stoppage losses are also by really bad knockout. So I don't have any particular stock in this fight. I don't know if I'd probably have to flip a darn coin to see who's going to win this fight, just based on them two bulls crashing together. But give me two bulls crashing together. I'm all in on that one.
William Knight looks like somebody tried to make a human being out of bowling balls.
Yeah.
It's just so
like
huge.
That was definitely the fight I was going with. Like that it's just like an explosion of violence and muscle mass. Like this is like Joe Rogan will be in his podcast studio just going on these endless rants about muscle taking up oxygen. And like whoever is unlucky enough to be sitting there with him,
kids,
like under a haze of weed smoke, and his kids are gonna be like, "Dad, shut up." So that's gonna be.
Well, Joe's gonna be excited for this stuff.
I think another potential for a lot of action is actually going to be the curtain jerker on this. Dustin Jacoby versus Maxim Grishin. Man, I'm loving what Dustin Jacoby has done since he's returned to mixed martial arts from kickboxing. A surprise, by the way. So I'm really looking forward to see what he does. And Grissom has had some spectacular finishes in PFL, I believe it was. So this should be pretty cool. So looking forward to that. That will do it for this edition of Unleashed. Big thank you to G for joining us once again. Check out the WOCast Shots Fired. Quite honestly, it's one of my favorite MMA podcasts to listen to. I don't listen to a lot of MMA content outside of what I do, because like inundated with this stuff, but that's one that is a must listen. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. You see the Twitter handle on there, follow her, and we're trying to get her co-host on this show as well. So we got to make that happen.
We're gonna do it.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. Now, of course, send a big thank you to Ben Duffy, as always, Jay Petrie, as always. You can find their work on Sherdog.com. You can catch my work on MMA On Point and the Body Lock. So you know what you got to do. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay positive. You got to adopt Black children and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.